Hey everybody, and welcome back to my channel. Since October is the spooky season, I'll be doing a series for Halloween. The nastiest, most terrifying, devilish, and horrible things you may have heard about. To help me defeat the YouTube algorithm, please like, comment, and subscribe. Thanks for your support. Number 1. The Brazen Bull. This Greek innovation from antiquity was a very cruel method of punishment. The new means of executing its criminals would a fire be placed below the hollowed-out bronze bull, that the victim would be placed inside. The person within would slowly cook to death as the metal heated and charred their skin. The bull's structure included a horn which would magnify the screams of the victim, which would also be on public display. The most fascinating aspect of the narrative is that the very first victim of this invention was the inventor himself. Number 2. The Iron Maiden. This was a medieval torture device and not the heavy metal band. This iron device was fashioned to look like a lady and was spiked within. The door would close, the victim stabbed by thousands of spikes slowly as they were imprisoned within. It was a painful and protracted death. The cries of the victim were muffled by the iron which entombed around them. The spikes would not go deep within the victim, causing a slow amount of blood to ooze from them. Some maidens were encased fully, while others had holes for the eyes and the mouth, for those to hear and see the slow death of the victim. Number 3. The Judas Cradle. Developed during the Spanish Inquisition, this kind of torture entailed fastening the prisoner with a sharp point to a seat in the shape of a pyramid. The victim would be brought down upon the point and slowly impaled, going through extreme agony. The victim would also be naked, adding to the humiliation of the torture. But to make it worse, weights would be added to each foot, dragging them down on the point, which would slowly go into their penis, anus, or vagina, causing bleeding and a slow death or punishment. Number 4. The Scavenger's Daughter. During England's reign of Queen Elizabeth I, this torture contraption was invented. The victim's body was crushed by an iron hoop, shattering their bones and giving them great agony. The body, in a fetal position, would be tied with their hands behind their legs, naked, and the hoop tightened to the point of skin bleeding, bones being crushed, and causing immense inner turmoil of the victim. In many cases, it did result in death. Number 5. The Pear of Anguish. A screw mechanism, which was used to spread open parts of the body. This twisted device, after it was placed inside the victim's mouth, anus, or vagina, the sufferer would experience excruciating pain as the pear progressively stretched the hole. Some victims who had their pear inside the mouth would have an explosion and cracking of their skull. Teeth would fall out. The skull, now cracked, would have their eyes, brain, and other inner organs be destroyed or dislodged, resulting in death or extreme agony. Number 6. The Rack. The rack was a contraption that stretched the victim's limbs until they were dislocated, and it is perhaps one of the most notorious torture techniques in human history. The operation might result in limbs being torn out from their sockets and later needing amputation, or should this never be used again. The operation would cause extreme pain, possible inner turmoil, and even death in rare circumstances. Number 7. The Lead Sprinkler. The victim suffered terrible burns and agonizing anguish from this apparatus, which poured molten lead across their flesh in a slow, rain-like fashion. The victim would be tied to a chair or locked into a position underneath the device. It was a torturous process that was lengthy and excruciating, and left deep wounds that could permanently scar the victim's flesh, or it went deep within, which could cause damage to the brain and other organs. 8. Waterboarding. A contemporary kind of interrogation, waterboarding entails drowning the subject by covering their face with a cloth or towel and pouring water over their face, which is obstructing their airway, causing them to not breathe, and gives the sensation of drowning. It is a horrifying kind of torture that makes the sufferer feel terrified and apprehensive. This tactic is used recently by many countries to force the person to give up information. Number 9. Flaying. Using this technique, the victim's skin was removed while they were still living. The victim was left defenseless and exposed, as the skin slowly was peeled away by a whip, or an instrument called the cat o' nine tails, which was a whip, but it had glass and tile shards put together, which yanked out flesh and bone from the victim, causing unbearable torment. The victim, naked, would be tied to a column or a small stone, which would make their back arch, exposing it to the torturer, who would easily be able to cause a serious amount of external and internal damage. One notable figure who was exposed to this treatment was Jesus Christ. 10. Crucifixion. Possibly the most well-known kind of torture ever used, and carrying on from our last form of torture, crucifixion entailed fastening the victim to a cross made of wood. The victim would be nailed or tied to the cross, forcing them to stay in a certain position. If the victim was flayed, their back would rub up and down on the cross, allowing wood to get into their wounds. The way the cross worked was that since the arms are extended and legs are crossed, it caused the victim to not be able to breathe, causing suffocation. The only way to breathe is to try to stand, causing the back to be ripped on the wood. Crucifixion's physical and psychological agony is unmatched in its savagery. To end the victim, a man with a huge hammer or log would break the victim's legs, causing them to fall slumped over, resulting in suffocation. The Catholic or Christian story detailed a soldier who stabbed the body of Christ with a spear to the heart, causing blood and water to pour out of the wound. In some biblical accounts, they actually do mention the use of breaking the legs of the men on either side of Christ. Either way, the use of crucifixion was to embarrass the individual, cause extreme pain or death in a public event. Now that we have covered the 10 most horrific forms of torture in recorded history, I appreciate you viewing. And please, again, subscribe to my channel for more captivating videos and help my channel grow.